Hi there. It's May the 3rd, and we're continuing our journey through the book of Judges, Shoftim in Hebrew, meaning those who bring the right decisions, those who make things right. And we're coming to two very strange chapters, chapter 17 and 18, which have to do with the tribe of Dan. The story starts off with a man by the name of Micah, and there's a strange interaction between him and his mother at the beginning of chapter 17, which basically it transpires that Micah has taken a sum of money, silver, from his mother, and his mother doesn't know what's happened to it, and he ends up returning it to his mother, whether that's out of bad conscience or whatever, we don't know. But his mother says a strange thing. She says, actually, I was going to use some of this, I was going to use this to make an image, to make an idol, an ephod, to give to the Lord. So now I'm going to take a portion of this and I'm going to make a silver idol. So a silver idol is made, and it's in the house of Micah, and Micah actually appoints his own son as a priest to this idol. It's a very strange situation. And soon into this chapter there's a phrase used which is a theme throughout the rest of the book of Judges. And in Hebrew it says, En melech be'Yisrael isha yashar be'enav yaseh. It means there was no king in Israel in those days, and everyone did as he saw fit. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Now, when it says there was no king, it means there was no government, there was no central anchor point, there was nothing to hold the people together. So everyone was doing their own thing, and we very much see that here with the story of Micah. Now, Micah actually hosts a Levite, and remember, Levites were those who looked after the things of God, and so Micah thinks he's going to get a better service than his son if he appoints this Levite to be the priest to what's now become a collection of idols in what is called a Bet Elohim, a house of the gods that he has. And so the Levite, he offers the Levite maintenance, he offers him remuneration, he offers him clothing, and the Levite thinks, well, this is going to be a good deal, I'll stay around. And so Micah establishes the Levite there, and the Levite's very happy. Then in chapter 18, we read of the tribe of Dan. Now, Dan had lands on the coast, stretching from the coast around the Tel Aviv area down towards Jerusalem. But because of the trouble they've had with the Philistines, and actually Samson, who has just had his downfall, Samson was a Danite himself. He was of the tribe of Dan and his family. And therefore the Philistines have oppressed the Danites, and it seems that they've pushed the Danites further and further out of their inheritance, because it says at the beginning of chapter 18 they don't have an inheritance, where in fact they were given an inheritance, but it's been encroached on by the Philistines. So now the Danites decide we need to go and find somewhere else to settle, somewhere that we've got more space, somewhere that will be more useful for us. And so they make a journey first down into the territory of Judah, and with military men, fighting men, and they camp for a while in Judah, and then they move up into Ephraim, and they come to Micah's house. And that Micah's house, they come to this Bet Elohim, this house of idols, this house of gods, and in this particular house of gods they encounter the Levite priest, and they ask, what are you doing here? Well, I'm the Levite, I'm the priest of this place. And so they ask him for some information from God. They ask him to consult God and tell them whether their adventure, whether their exploit is going to be successful. And he says, Lech l'shalom, go to peace, because yes, it's going to be okay. And so the Danites go from there right to the northern part of Israel, right up towards Mount Hermon on the borders with Syria and Lebanon. And there they come to a city called Laish. And Laish is in a really fertile place. It's well watered. It's got lots of space. And the people there, it says, are living in security and safety. And the Danites, the spies particularly who've gone ahead of them, see this and they think, we can take this place. This is a good place for us to conquer. And so they together grab hold of this place, and they take it, and they establish themselves there. Now, in the process, they also go to the house of Micah and they say to the Levite, who's the priest of Micah, we want you to be our priest. We want you to be our tribal spiritual advisor, if you like, a tribal spiritual go-between between us and God, or the gods that they're worshipping. And so they do something quite dramatic. They take all of the idols and all of the gods from the house of gods that Micah has, and they say to the Levite, come on, we can give you a better deal than Micah's given you. We can pay you better. We can give you more. And after all, why be limited to one man's house when you can come and be the spiritual advisor, the religious leader of a whole tribe of Israel? And so the Levite agrees and goes off with the tribe of Dan. Micah is upset and he gathers people from the area around him and they pursue the Danites. But when they get to the Danites, they realize that they're not going to overcome the Danites. The Danites are too powerful for them. And actually the Danites say, we'll give you trouble if you try and take back your priest and your gods. And so Micah goes off with nothing. And the Danites keep the priest and the idols. And so they settle in Laish, which is now recalled Dan. And it's right up, as I say, in the northern part of Israel, so that when people talk about the scope of the land of Israel, later they talk about the land from Dan to Beersheba. And Dan is right in the very north, and Beersheba is right down in the south in the Negev desert. And so Dan in the north, the city of Dan, which was formerly Laish, becomes their capital, becomes their centre. Dan settle in that area. But what's interesting is they set up there these idols which they brought with them from the house of Micah. And it says that that continues to be their place of worship right up until the captivity of the land. And when we look later on, we find that when the northern kingdom breaks away from the southern kingdom of Judah, Dan becomes one of the places where a golden calf is set up that people go and worship instead of worshipping at the temple in Jerusalem. And Dan, here right from the beginning of its foundation, the message seems to be that Dan is a troublesome place, that the city of Dan is a place where God is not observed carefully, he's not worshipped properly. As I said, the one thing that is reflected throughout these chapters and will be throughout the rest of the book of Judges is the fact that there's no king in the land. Now, it doesn't mean that there should be some man wearing a crown, because God is their king. Remember, Gideon said, I will not be king over you because the Lord is king. But what is happening is that people are going their own way. Isha yashar be'enav yaseh. Everyone is doing what is right in his own eyes. This is a poisonous thing that creeps into the society of Israel and can creep into any society where we do not hold on to the centrality and the leadership of God as King of all we do. Have a very good May the 3rd.